Oh man,
It's Pi Day.
I think we're
Happy Pi
live,
Day,
right?
everybody.
It's
We
Friday.
are
Happy
live.
Friday.
Happy Pi Day 314.
I'm so excited to be here with you guys to celebrate.
Well, thank you for joining in. So will just do some introductions and welcome everybody. And yeah, I mean, for everybody in the chat or everybody that's joining in, welcome. Thank you for joining in. A slice of pie with Flip, with Microsoft Math, and with Wacom. And so I guess my name is Andy Knueven, and I am honored to join you today as Flip, Educator Innovation Lead. And I'll pass it over to Stacey.
Hi, everyone. I'm equally as excited to be here. So my background is as a math teacher. So I have a lot of math love. So excited to be here to share some ways that I really have used Flip in my classroom, some ways that I pair it with a Wacom tablet as a math teacher. I love digital inking. If you use a lot of Microsoft tools, you know how integrated inking is into everything, including into Flip. And so I'm excited to share some love of pie and love of math with y'all today.
Yeah, I love that. I share that sentiment. The sharing the love of math, the love of learning of math, and love of pie with the pie with PI or PIE. My name is George. I guess I should have started with that. A math enthusiast, I would say. I've always enjoyed math, but really excited to learn from both Andy and Stacey about the innovative ways you can really integrate math and make that creativity really shine. Because I know it can be kind of a struggle, and like when you get stuck with math, it can really make it easy to hate math. But these tools that Stacey has and teaches every single day, renowned for. I'm really excited for you all to learn from and hopefully amplify. And then also I'll be sharing a little bit about, if you haven't heard of Microsoft Math Solver, really direct with the name. Basically, it's a free Microsoft tool basically to help, students or scholars or parents or whoever you are, make it easier to solve math problems, get that step-by-step solutions and additional resources. But with that, I'll kick it back over to you, Andy and Stacey.
Absolutely. So Stacey, as a math teacher, so I mean, my background absolutely is in the classroom teaching middle school, 7th and 8th grade. Math is different than as I was teaching 5th grade math and science as well. So, I mean, how have you leveraged, all kinds of great digital tools to be able to reach and connect with your students?
Yeah, I love that you put the emphasis there on connection, because I think that to me is like my biggest interest in these ed tech tools in general is how they can help us, build deeper relationship with students, get to know students on a more personal level. And foster that deeper connection. And I really believe that a lot of these tools can do that. So for me, one of my biggest interests started with creating videos. So creating flipped classroom videos was where my interest in technology and integrating it into the classroom began with me. And so that's where I do have this fascination with digital inking and the best ways to digitally ink. And that really stemmed from this need of, I wanted to make these videos, and I found the most effective way to make them was to write and talk at the same time. So that's where I found Wacom tablets, and I'm really happy with that workflow. And I'll share some of the ways that I use that today. But then really getting to the part of helping students verbalize their math thinking and to really deepen the peer-to-peer learning in the classroom was where then I found Flip, and I was like, okay, this is everything that I've been looking for. And I combined digital inking with that, with just students writing on paper. And the two flows go together well. I don't think we always need really fancy tools to do really fancy things. So Flip is one of my favorites because it is really simple, and there are a lot of options for having students share and verbalize their thinking process. So we can really dig into that.
Oh, I love it. And I love how you talked about emphasizing, having students share how they arrived at that solution or what they did to get to it. And letting our students just talk and let them share in whatever creative way, not over complicating things. I have to, give a shout out to, some past teachers. That one of them that I taught with, I mean, also Missy Stringham, a colleague that I taught with, but she always talked about, not overcomplicating it. I mean, that, if we are trying to help our students and letting them, share their voice, we don't need to make it harder than it needs to be. And so letting students, whether it's on paper and pencil, whether they're doing digital ink, whether they're using manipulatives, it's about how they are sharing their why and their thought process, and not just about that single solution at the end. Yeah. So, tell me more, because I am fascinated with this.
All right. I'm going to hop over to a screen share. I think that's going to come up in a moment. And I'm going to share a couple of different ideas. So I'm going to start with something that's like pie, because it's Pi Day, for fun. And then I'll share like some more like actual ideas of things I did. A lot of people know that my main class that I've taught over the years has been AP Calculus. So I have most of my examples in that. But let's start with something pie. Let's have some fun. So, like if I was doing this right now, if I was creating a lesson for something like what is pi, I just thought of a couple of ideas I wanted to share that would incorporate some things you can see like in using Flip, using a little bit of the math solver, and just a lot of like student exploration. So, if people are joining on the call and they're like, kind of know what pi is, no, 3.14 approximately, but what is pi really? Like I like to, when I'm introducing it to students, do something like this. Again, I have taught high school math, has been where I've taught. So like maybe make the length of my, go ahead right here, and you can change the diameter. This is just a little GeoGebra. Somebody else has made it. So shout out to the author of this, which is Richard Wade. He made this. But I love the simulation where it's like, okay, here's a circle with diameter of 1, and let's roll it along. And if we roll it along, how far do we go? Well, the length is pi. So maybe show something like that and then start a flip topic, right? To like really let students talk out what they're thinking. And so yes, having a class conversation about this is really powerful, but a lot of times I might want to like even give students this to play with the night before for homework, and let them start by telling me what they see, what they observe, what they wonder on Flip, because then everybody has a chance to contribute what they're thinking about. They have a chance to kind of, think. That some students need more think time. And that's one of my favorite things about Flip, but also I can hear from everybody, right? It's not just like the couple of people who raised their hands or chose to talk. And maybe some students will feel more comfortable making a mistake if they're doing it on the Flip, and, they don't feel as much peer pressure. They feel it in a different way. So, you might start with a simulation, ask them a couple questions, like just roll it with diameter 1, change the diameter to 2. What do you observe now? So you can ask all these questions and then open up a Flip topic. Super simple, right? Then maybe you open up the conversation in class and really start talking about it. Then maybe you have something that's more hands-on. So that's where I would have this like string maybe where, I think a lot of people have probably seen this type of an activity where you kind of have something, like a circle, a jar, whatever, wrap the string around it, and then ask students to kind of lay the string on the diameter and see how many times it folds over, right? So you're going to obviously see it folds over a little more than 3 times, because the ratio of what is the circumference to the diameter. That's what pi is. It's circumference over diameter. But have students prove this, have them figure that out by using some of this. And then you could have them like find all different shapes, measure their circumferences. Am I still making sense here? Hopefully.
Oh my gosh, I love, I'm going to, not to interrupt, I really didn't want to interject. I love one that, to go back to the virtual example of that, how you had it as a diameter of 1, and then when you changed it to 2, then as you have it here, the length there is not 3.14. But this is where then we can ask our students to say, what do you notice? How can you make these connections, and let them explain and say, oh, well, 3.14, if we multiply that by 2, is that the reason why the diameter is then 2? And I mean, as we can dive so much deeper into this, doing different numbers and seeing the connections. Oh my gosh, I love the just virtual aspect of that. But then with the string, I will say, like, I enjoyed doing that as well with my students as we explored pi and circumference and the formulas. But just simple, take that diameter and copying that over and over around the circle to see, I mean, physically see how that changes, or how you can see 3 times and just a little bit more.
Just more.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. And I didn't want to interject, but I just love it. Yeah.
And let's move over to flip, because I think having them document it, right? So like as they take the physical jars and they start measuring them, have them document it. So I love the, yes, I love this, but also I really love the whiteboard feature. So if we click on the boards, and then let's just do a simple, let's do a dot grid for right now. And then you can make it part of your screen, but I'm going to just make it for my full screen right now. And then what we could do here is students could like upload the pictures that they were taking, or you know what, like we could even do some of these just using the stickers and just using, well, you can see I was practicing for this, but you could type circle and find different circles here. So you could just do this. But you would still need students to like measure physically by hand some of this stuff, like measure the actual circumference of this. But this could be a way you can duplicate shapes, right? So you could have students maybe do a couple of them, and then under. So this is where the drawing can come in. And so I just have right now, I use a Wacom 1 tablet. So I have a second screen here, very convenient. And so then you could have students just draw on the screen. So maybe let's just change the color here. Sorry, I'm looking down because I'm looking at my tablet, to white. And, you could have them measure their circumference here, put it in. Let's just say the circumference right now is, let's just put in 3 for an example. And then you could have them measure the diameter too. So let's change the color of the ink
As you're writing that, I'm seeing the chat. I have to give, Stormy, seeing you in the chat of there making the measurements come to life. I mean, that is so cool. Yes, 100%. And yes, OMG need that tablet. So, yeah. I mean, Stacey, you are inspiring so many people immediately right now. Yeah, but sorry, I didn't want to interject, but seeing the chat there, very cool.
Yeah, thanks for that. What's the diameter going to be if their circumference is 3? Well, going to need my math solver here in a moment. But what we're going to do is like have them figure out their circumference, have them fill out a couple of diameters, and then you could have them ultimately, after they've done that for a couple of them, kind of show their thinking. So they have like their circumference that they found, they have the diameters that they found, and then have them chart what they find about their circumference over the diameter, and kind of have them do some physical shapes, maybe have them measure some of these online and just draw it out. And one thing that's really nice about Flip is as they're recording their video, right, that they can just record, pause, and kind of make it like a stop motion type of thing, but just upload different pictures as they're doing this. So they can in real time, like talk out like their lab thinking. And the reality is so many kids are thinking like this anyway, especially with TikTok. Like if you watch any recipe TikToks, right? Like how many times is that creator who's making that recipe pausing that video as they're doing it? Kids are really used to this type of thing now. And so I think they can get really creative when you give them some creative freedom over like, how do you want to document what you're thinking about? That's where I think we get connection to, like just seeing how students choose to like showcase what they found in Flip is really interesting. And that's another thing that I just love. For this particular activity, I would probably have them working together in partner groups. But they, the circumference and the diameter, as they're figuring that out, this is where too, like if you haven't used Math Solver before, there's actually another thing. If you do have tablets, and I just want to show this one since I have one right now, there's a option here to draw. And if you're using the mobile app, you can draw with your finger. But right now I have my tablet out, right? So I could do a couple of them, like here, you'll see that you could type them or you can just draw. So let's go ahead and draw one of them. So say that you approximated that, we had like 3 point, or let's do the other one that I had. If I do like 6.3 and 2, because that's going to work out right. I mean, you would have them measuring things, but say that they approximated that their circumference was about 6.3, and then they measured the diameter out and they got it was about 2, then obviously that's going to be kind of the ratio that we're looking at for, that's how we're going to get the pi. But yeah, you just write it and it all shows up there. Isn't that amazing? Like the handwriting recognition is so good with this thing, and it can do more complex things too. And if you don't have the handwriting ability, you can obviously get all the tools right here. All different subjects are there, or you can just type them. But yeah, I'm a big fan of just being able to handwrite some of this stuff, and it's really, really good.
That is incredible. And I love how, just doing that right there live on the site on Math Solver, and just incredible to be able to just use the app, scan, or writing it out, whether it's it's on the paper or you are taking it from a worksheet or from a screen. And that's actually, Math Solver is part of the Edge browser as well, which is incredible that you can take that scan and use Math Solver right there in Edge too. So super incredible.
Yeah, totally. Right there in the sidebar.
Yep. Very cool. So, what other, uses that you've had as, incorporating having your students share, what other, uses of that, especially, with Flip?
Usually I keep it, like I was saying, like super simple, where students are writing on a piece of paper and hovering their phone with the app over their piece of paper. And usually I have them write it all out ahead of time, just because otherwise it does take a long time. And then point. That's really important to me, that they point along the process, so that I know, like, not just I know, but when students are watching each other's, that they can kind of follow the process. So either they can point with their physical pen, or another way of them doing this is that they can take a screenshot of their work, of their handwritten work. And then, just like use an emoji type of, could use a sticker too, and just get some type of a point.
Okay.
They choose, and then just move the emoji. Some of them like doing it that fashion too, like start and pause.
I love your comment on the power of pause, and that's like one of those little hidden gems of the Flip camera, is simply to pause, to hit that circle again, to pause your recording, adjust things, or move another piece around. It's actually one of my little hidden gem secrets of when I've done like stop motion with the Flip camera. But to do that, to tell a story, especially like the Flip talks that we are seeing and sharing, but to let that creativity shine through the camera and letting students progressively add to that problem. I love it.
Yeah. And now, even if you make a mistake while you're recording, you can edit after.
And the Flip Madness champion of, yes, the add and edit effects anytime, to be able to add the text, even post-recording, just really incredible to be able to let students, even just to write out, if they were to record their process and then go back and add those effects on mobile, really incredible.
Yeah. So powerful. And it's so simple. So like I have examples of doing this in my AP Calculus class all the time. We would do these for each unit. Not the first unit. The first unit, usually I get students more used to things, and I really just use Flip to have them just start like talking to me and get comfortable with Flip. I actually don't start using Flip for math specific things until the second unit that we're in. I find that really important to getting them kind of like to open up and get comfortable. But then we use that and we progressively, like at first it's like students just posting, and then it's students posting and commenting. And we do this in our youngest, the school that I was at, K through 12, and our youngest learners would do this too on whiteboards. Sometimes they love, how kids love writing on the physical whiteboards. So they would do that sometimes and then just record there too. So there's so many applications. And then as we progressed with things, they began getting more collaborative. So this is one of the examples that I have from way later in the year, where students would do a multi-step process where we would have the AP actual free response questions, 6 different questions, A, B, C, D. Each person would do a piece of the question, and then students would add on. So they would have to watch what the previous student had submitted, and then they would do the next part, adding on to it and getting, 1A was done, then they would do 1B, 1C, 1D. It would force them to watch what somebody else had done, really take that in, and then vibe off of that to do the next piece of the answer. And then you can do the critique, right in Flip, because they can reply to one another through text and through video. And a lot of times with math, the video is just way more powerful. Even sometimes, again, keep it simple. Sometimes it can just be like a screenshot of like, oh, I approached this differently. Here's a screenshot of how I did it. But instead of a screenshot, now it's a video, right?
Mhm.
The video is just a screenshot with them telling you, oh, I thought about it a little bit differently, and this is why. So that's as simple as it can be. But again, like, I don't get to that critiquing until a little bit later in the year. And I found that to be a really important piece of making Flip work for us, is just gradually building, because critiquing a video is really hard. And so we kind of have to, gear up for that. We have to train for that.
Absolutely. I mean, we always talk about, with Flip, having that positive response, knowing how we engage with each other. You talk about digital citizenship, in the interactions, whether it's in a text comment or that video response. And, I love, it's just a simple way that you can respond and catch maybe those errors. It's not about a gotcha kind of thing, but it's a constructive criticism that you're supporting each other along the way. But I love, even just holding up that whiteboard in the Flip camera. And I will say another little hidden gem of that Flip camera is mirror. I mean, using those 3 dots, mirror the camera so that the words are, visibly seen correctly to everybody else watching. But I mean, to throw back the idea of a good mathematician's a lazy mathematician, to not overcomplicate it, to make it simple. And you're doing that right there. I love how it's a progressive series of responses that your students are having to go back and kind of watch to then know where to pick back up. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Those are my main ways of sharing.
And I love that last bullet point you have on there of one major takeaway from watching how your classmates solved the problem. And I mean, as you were doing that, did you find that students were having, like, they had a problem finding that solution, and then they were collaborating with each other, or talking through, resorting back to looking back at notes, or how to progressively, critically think through different scenarios or the problem that they were looking at?
Yeah, I think that one of the main things, and the reason that I like to ask that type of a question, is just to really celebrate like the diversity of thought and ways of solving math problems. Because kind of like we were starting out talking, that a lot of times students think that, there's a right way to solve a math problem and there's a wrong way. And they think a little bit more black and white. I really like Flip for the ability to showcase all the different ways that we can solve a problem. And also when I'm grading, I can put the emphasis on that thinking process. Like, now I can grade where the most of the points are being awarded for that verbalizing what you're thinking, how you're thinking through the problem. And just a little piece of it is actually the accuracy of the answer. Whereas I can't do this as powerfully when, they're just doing like a paper and pencil test, right? So that is like one of my favorite ways of doing it. And yes, students will say like, oh, I thought of it a little bit differently, and I liked what you said, or I didn't like what you said, or, I think it's simpler this way. Do they look back through their notes at that moment? Of course they do, because maybe they're thinking like, oh, how did they maybe they're watching another student's solution and they kind of get it, but they're a little bit confused because that wasn't the way their brain naturally went. So they were forced to review something in trying to like almost reverse engineer what that other student had, how they had solved that problem. So there's just so much learning that happens when we ask students to like deeply look at how another student has solved the problem. And, you know, like this happens for all different grade levels and all different things. I mean, you might think, oh yeah, because you're doing an AP calculus problem, there's like so many steps involved in that. But even when you're like asking the youngest kids how they're doing 3 times 4, like how they're thinking about what 3 times 4 looks like, or you know, how they're calculating it, are they adding up things, what are they thinking? It's just so interesting to get to know students better in that way, and their thought process. And it also helps us connect to our learners and helps us provide more resources for them to help them better learn, because we understand more how they learn, right?
Totally. Yes. And I mean, Felly in the chat just dropped in of, you know, it's empowering for our students to know that there's more than one way to get to the correct answer. It's not just about the solution, but the journey that we take to get there. And we can get there in different ways using different tools, you know, meeting our students where they are. And I mean, Stormy again, you know, love how it tells a story of their thinking, utilizing Flip to be able to do that. And I mean, with math, we can tell stories with math. It's not, I mean, shout out to all the, you know, the literature teachers out there, but with math, there are, I mean, that's why we have story problems and that's why it's so fun. So George,
yeah, it's sorry. I'm coming out of left field. I feel like just popping in. I swear I wasn't lurking. I'm just like in awe and soaking all in. But I major echo to everything. Like, you know, you said, Andy and Stacey and Stormy and Felly, is like the power of like that peer-to-peer learning. Like that's the power of social learning. And the idea of like, I think multiple points of like not feeling alone, like maybe the ways that you looked at it, maybe you feel isolated, but then being able to see those other creative ways, it kind of crowdsources problem solving. And that way you're like kind of working with each other. So again, like kind of shows like there are multiple journeys to like the end destination, which is really empowering in a sense, not feeling like, you know, this is collaborative and there are multiple different ways, and really kind of bringing out the creativity, but more so just like, you know, just having that collaborative environment, just being able to work with each other and now knowing there's not a one dimension to like solving this. So I really love that. And I love the way that you kind of teach like Stacey and like or in like get them to like kind of think about and learn is through that, and to think like, you know, how or someone else might do it. Like there's not one way to do it. So really, really love the sentiment. I think that's something I think a lot of students, I mean, especially me, like growing up, like knowing that there isn't just one way to do it, and there are multiple ways. So I love that.
You know, just piggyback on that, the idea that students can continue their thinking beyond the classroom as they are, you know, reflecting on it, the asynchronous part of Flip, to be able to respond when it's like, oh, that light bulb moment, it clicks at that moment, or they feel more comfortable and confident to be able to respond in another setting. And you're letting every student have a voice, not just the first one that has the answer. Just because you answer it first in math doesn't mean you understand it better. And so that's just a really great thing that you're sharing and telling here. 100%. I love it.
And a quick question, Stacey, this is like kind of random, but do you have a favorite type of math or specific area you like to teach the most? Like there's something that like you're just excited, like, oh, next week is algorithm day or proofs. Like, is there something that gets like, what is the most exciting math for you to teach?
That's a good question. So in general, I really like what I think a lot of people don't like in terms of just like algebraic manipulation. Like it feels like a puzzle to me, like trying to figure out like the efficient way to do it, or like how to, I love trigonometric identities, which again, like a lot of people don't like it, but it's like the answer's sitting there. The answer's sitting there for you. You have a left side, you have a right side. You play with the left side and you play with it, you play with it, you play with it till you make it match the right side. And sometimes it's so frustrating because you don't know where to start. I think that's also the beauty of math. They're like, I tell my students over and over again, even, I mean, it doesn't matter how many years I teach calculus, I still so many times you look at the problem and I'm not sure where I want to start. Sometimes I start one place and I'm like, oh, that's not really getting me to where I want to go. But that's how math is. And that can also make it intimidating because you start it and you're like going, I mean, you're going in circles. I know I'm saying that on Pi Day, but it does sometimes feel like that. But also, like, you have to trust the process. So that's one of the reasons that I'm just so invested in this idea of like, how do we have students showcase that thinking process? Because it is like, it's a fun process and it's a frustrating process, but that's what makes it fun in the end. So yeah, those are some of my favorite things. Just that fun algebraic manipulation.
No, I love that. Yeah, I mean, not my first choice. I won't say that's like everyone's first choice, but it totally makes sense. And I think what really stuck out to me, and this might be a good transition, not planned at all, but for like how math solvers like getting stuck, like where to start. And it's really helpful to kind of see like, like one way of doing it, or like, an example of that step-by-step solution to kind of work backwards. Because that is like really where I think some of the learning is. It's like, okay, get the answer, but then let me like try and figure out like, how does that triangulate back to like the start of it? So I do love that, but maybe I'll start trying to share my screen. But Andy, you were going to say something.
I was Stacey, you talking about proofs and an instant flashback, and it's amazing how educators, I mean, they touch our hearts as kids, as students. We reflect and be like, oh, I remember that teacher. And until you just said about proofs, old past teacher of mine, Mrs. Ragsdale. I mean, I haven't said that name in years, but talking about proofs and ending every proof with writing out QED for Latin for that of which I've proven, or that I've done. I mean, I haven't talked about that in ages. Oh my gosh. And so it's just really empowering how those meaningful things, it's, you proved it, but you talked about reverse engineering those math problems as students are doing it. And George, I mean, talking about math solver, and that's why I want to throw it to you on how we can reverse engineer our problems with math solver like that.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I'm going to try and share my screen right now. So you guys give me that verbal thumbs up if you can start seeing it. I'll try and get to the right tab.
Perfect.
And let me know. Yeah, you can see it? Okay,
excellent.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a reintroduction, if anyone doesn't know, this is Microsoft Math Solver, something that we get to work very closely with, and it's kind of a hidden gem, I would say, for anyone that's like learning for a tutorial or a resource to help you kind of get through that extra step with math, whether you're a student or a parent, because I know a lot of like, feels like math is always changing, and it'd be nice to have that little assistant that's like kind of on demand to help you with it. But Microsoft Math Solver is something that's available on the web, whatever browser you use. It's also available on the App Store, like Apple and Google. But here's kind of the basics. I'm going to show a little different environments of it that's really cool. But basically how it works, like you can just type in a math problem. We're actually going to use this quadratic equation one here, x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. I don't know why I read it out for you. You can all read probably. But it pulls in the equation here, and then it gives you the answer. But what's great, which I personally love, is that you can kind of choose the method in which you want to solve this and then get those solution steps, which is great because it gives not only like, what the, equation formula is from like, step 1 to step 2, but also a little bit of commentary of like what exactly they're doing, how it's happening. And what's also cool, you might have seen if you're familiar with the immersive reader, you can click on that and then also get that read to you. So it's like very accessible in the sense, being able to read it out to you, especially with math symbols. And then what else is really cool, which you might not know, but just by looking at it, it is localized in a million different languages. So Feli can speak on this, like, it's localized in Spanish, Italian, German, Russian, like whatever it is, Dutch. There's so many languages I don't even know. But it has all that in there. So whatever the way the solutions are kind of written out, it will be localized to that language as well, which is incredible. Another thing too, which I'll get to in the kind of the mobile app, it also graphs it for you. So you can kind of look at it there in case you're just trying to graph the equation. And then additionally too, I like the quizzes. So like, let's say you kind of like done the problem, but you want to see like and test your understanding of it. You're able to kind of generate a quiz based on that problem that you entered in, and then click on it. And then you'll get kind of a multiple choice. You'll get like that similar problem, but then also if you get stuck again, you can do help me, and it'll give you like those little tips of like, okay, consider this. And then you'll be able to check your answer and then kind of move on from there. I guess I got that wrong. Everyone's still with me still? I didn't like lose anyone, right?
You're excellent. Yeah.
Cool. Another thing I want to share with Microsoft Math Solver on Edge. So when you're on the Edge browser, let's say you're studying for the SAT. This is a sample SAT question in the math section, something I constantly did. What's great is that Edge has a tool where you can go into the little 3 dots here, click on more tools, and then click on Math Solver, a little hidden gem. And then it'll allow you to basically kind of grab anything on one of your tabs, the math problem. So you can go here, and then you click solve. And the same thing you saw on the Math Solver kind of website is available to you right here within the tab. And you can do everything that it was over there. And it's basically just kind of grabbing a screen grab or anything. So if you're looking for kind of extra help here, you can go to the solution steps, again, choose the different methods. And then also as well, like, they have that graphing functionality. And then also like, getting some additional resources and videos that we find that are associated with it. And now I'm actually going to go back. I'm going to show you kind of the mobile view. I tried to do it from like my phone. It's not really working. So I'm going to try something a little different. So give me just one sec as I vamp to get here. Actually, while I do that, I'm going to pull Bill Nye. So I'm going to use this as like a sample. And I swear it is like literally while everything else is happening. So it's going to be recorded into this slide deck. And give me 1 second. Share. We're going to do entire screen, hop into here. All right, can you see this? It's our beautiful faces with the title.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So the first thing is I can solve quadratic. So right here, the same board that you just saw a few seconds ago, I scanned it with my phone, and then it does the same thing I shared with you that is on the website. You can, again, click on the different methods, get the step-by-step. Immersive Reader is also built into this, which I love. So literally you find, like right now, I've been drawing math problems everywhere on like the whiteboards here at the office. But if you literally go and like snap it, get the answer, and then have that full functionality of step-by-step solutions. Another thing I like too is, again, that graphing equations. If you're trying to like, get like what that y-intercept is, the x-intercept, you have that. You can click on it. It'll expand it. Again, show you the different zeros, the function. And then the last thing I want to share on mobile, which is really special, I think, is that you can literally upload pictures that you had before. So let's say I had a picture right here, that one I'm pointing to, trying to solve for x. I can get that picture. And then from there, I can actually crop to the problem that's captured. And then again, same functionality. You get to solve for x, the step-by-step solutions. But it's really, really cool. So I'm a big fan of like the mobile app because of how easy it is. But again, all that functionality is available on the website as well. So really powerful stuff. And we're kind of just getting started, I would say. Like this is kind of like the start of like, there's multiple ways to learn math, and we want to continue to advance that. And we want to hear your ideas, like maybe some things that you struggle with that we can add on there. As you can see, if you browse it, there's a ton of resources to practice different math techniques, but let us know like what we can add, what we can help, because that's kind of our jam. And we're just trying to see what we can do to really elevate it to the next level. But it starts with you, because you really are the foundation of all this and how you teach your students. And we just want to be that tool that can help you. We're not trying to replace you. We're trying to help you. We can really amplify that learning and make math fun. If we can make that a mission statement, it would be make math fun, but we'll work on that. It'll be the hidden agenda for us. But yeah, that's all I got for me on Math Solver side.
No, that is.
I think it just fits so beautifully with so much of like, what Andy and I were saying earlier on with that idea of like, helping students think through the process and having them verbalize it, but also seeing different ways. Like, I'm sure that a lot of the ways that Math Solver solves a problem isn't going to be exactly the way that a student might solve it, or they're going to add in extra steps that are just kind of a little bit redundant, things that kind of you do in your head and they're writing it on paper. I know, sometimes I've used some of this stuff with students and they're like, what are these 3 steps in between? It's like, well, they're just writing out all the stuff that you kind of like do in your head, like that you kind of factor it in your head, but they're writing out every explicit step there. And so it's really fun to challenge students, even as you're teaching them how to use these tools. And I think that is something that is really important that we do as teachers, is help students use these tools really effectively and use them better. But having them look at that tool, look at that process, this could be a perfect idea for a flip activity actually early on. Have them all do maybe, the same type of question, ask Math Solver to do it, and then they critique Math Solver. Like, I would do it this way. I would do it similarly. I would do it differently. But help them also read how Math Solver writes, right? Because it might be a little bit different than how we write. But they need to be able to use this as a resource to help them. And it does help them get unstuck too. So some of that really uncomfortable part of when students go home and, you get this big inequity in terms of like some students have a parent who might be able to help them, and then you have some students who don't have a parent who's going to be able to help them. Some students are able to do their homework when a friend can do it with them. Some students really have a really busy schedule and they're doing their homework at a time when they don't have somebody to call and help them. Well, now like you're kind of giving everybody this tool that is really powerful. It's accessible. You know, it reads aloud to you if you need that for different students who have different accommodations. There's just so much power in this tool when I think we like really creatively think about how we can use this. And then as educators too, it's very powerful for the demonstrations, very powerful to so easily be able to show like, here's the algebraic way of doing it. Here is the graphical way of doing it. Bring these things together and make sure you're doing it all the time, which a lot of times, you know, it's like, it used to be so much work to kind of show both of those solutions. And now you just like have it in a snapshot. So I'm a big fan of these tools.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's like really just trying the equity behind it, right? Like making sure like getting people on the same level, being able to like, I think Unstuck, if Unstuck tool could be it, that's what the Math Solver Unstuck tool, because like you don't want to be stuck on this one problem. And there's like, it's like fundamentally something that you're missing that you could just, once you know that, then you're able to do that same problem over and over again. But it doesn't help like if you like are just trying to guess and like throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to figure out, okay, what's the right way to do it? And having that assistance is nice. It's like kind of like, you know, tag me in, like what am I missing here? And to have that on demand, like you said, like sometimes like, you know, parents and guardians aren't available right there, or maybe they don't know it either. And that's totally fine. And having this kind of resource helps them so it's not as frustrating. So
and then you can add on the quiz questions where it's like, can I actually apply this? Or did I only understand that one example? Let me test myself before I get to class or before I go in for the quiz. And I think building math confidence is really, really big. I always have students who like, you know, are trying to make up questions that don't actually make sense. And that's why then they like get stuck and they didn't really study as well as they could have. Studying for a math quiz can be very difficult. It's something we learn how to do. But here you go, you know, again, you're being equipped with questions that are not just solvable, but also are really relevant and are going to help the student out for what they need. So it's just a lot of power in that very simple demo that you showed.
Yeah, I mean, I love you talked through getting unstuck, and it's not necessarily like we're using and say Math Solver just to get the answer, but to look back at your steps and to say, all right, I'm at this point of this problem. What is that next? If I'm stuck, just I need to, you know, what is that next, you know, process, and then pick up and carry on. And that's where we're empowering our students to be able to think. But Stacey, I loved how you said, you know, to be able to critique the steps and to say, not to say the steps are wrong, but like, how would I go in a different direction, or would I, you know, approach it differently like that? I love that. Very cool. And I mean, to use Flip to be able to have students share their thought process on would they approach that solution in a different method or a different algorithm to be able to apply that. I love it. So great. And I mean, the comments, one, Omar had, you know, talked about, you know, where is Math Solver when we were in school or still in school. But, you know, it's there now, and definitely to utilize it. And Feli, you know, it's like a personal tutor, you know, for our students to be able to support them. You know, for parents, I mean, think about this, you know, as we talk about, you know, working smarter, not harder on it, to, as parents out there, use the tools to support you to help your students. I mean, utilizing like Math Solver that way. And 100%, yeah, Brian, yes, you know, absolutely right. You know, using it with your own kids. Scaffolding, yes. Oh my gosh, let's keep it rolling. So I guess before, you know, want to be mindful of time, but, you know, a little call to action.
Might have lost your audio, unless that's just me. Stacey?
Yes, I'm with you.
Man, just keeping us on the edge of our seats here. What's the call to action?
I know.
Yeah, there we go. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, that was like a cliffhanger there. But no, to talk about the call to action, to have, you know, to have some fun. I mean, Flip should be fun and empowering for our students to be able to say, you know, challenge your students. We shared out of, there's a Pi Day, memorize and celebrate, but to have your students challenge yourself, how many digits of pi can you memorize? I broke the ice there, and I'm sure that there's somebody out there. Please, if I have the high number here, we're talking about pi is infinite. So there, to say we could see how far we go. Now, I want to say, don't use the teleprompter to script out your your digits of pi, but I did cover my eyes in my response. But I got to 14. That's not too bad of it, but definitely I challenge people, go to the Think It, Flip It page there, and we have a little challenge. How many digits of pi can you recite and share? That topic is out there to be able to bring that into your own classroom and have fun with you in your own classroom community as well.
I love that. 14. That seems so timely. 314. Like,
I know.
14 digits. We should talk to like Paul and see, like, with the recording time, I think was a max like 15 minutes, 10 minutes. If you can break it, we'll increase the time length just for you to recite digits of pi.
Can you go over 10 minutes of reciting?
Can you go over 10 minutes? Yeah.
That would be impressive for sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Stacey, thank you so much for joining in today, joining us, celebrating Pi on 314. It's just a great way to connect with other mathematicians out there, mathletes that enjoy just diving into how we can empower our students, utilizing so many great tools and resources, but to foster an enjoyment of learning math.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to be able to celebrate with you all. Thank you too for celebrating this day and for making this event. It's really, as a teacher, even if I was just watching it, it would just bring me so much joy to know that, this event was there, give me some ideas, and really just provide some fuel, especially, March. It's a time of like getting through, getting ready for spring break, getting through that time. So hopefully this provided a little dose of fuel, and hopefully people can celebrate with a dish of pie afterwards.
That's my favorite, right? Like that, mathematicians and pie makers could come together. Is like, this will be our day. 314. This is what we're going to really double down on. But again, I share the same sentiment. This is a blast to be able to celebrate with both of you on Pi Day, and to share like this level of learning in math, and share ways that maybe would help some students, help scholars, educators, and even families with it. But again, I share Andy's thanks. Thank you so much, Stacey, for sharing your expertise in this. And I know you have such a tenured, experience with all this, and how, tailoring math is not a one-way thing for anyone, and the creativity you brought to it with these different tools. But yeah, I think this has been great.
So much fun.
Wonderful. So thank you again, everybody that joined in on the stream, and to be able to connect with us. Definitely feel free to reach out to us as we, continue on celebrating, our enjoyment of Pi and math. But Stacey, again, phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.